script seasonal edition of the Madhog and of our wrestling podcast. It's been a while since the last iteration of this, and well, we've been busy.
Yep. Extremely busy.
We've been very busy, yes.
We've been very busy body slamming Mad Fathers and
choke slamming Silent Ponyville.
Yes. As in the entire town.
We tombstoned the entire town. Yes, we did that.
And Pinky stayed in the closet. And that was a special move.
But you see, she was stuck inside a closet. But it turns out that was her new gimmick because she was being Chainsaw Charlie and coming out of the closet with a chainsaw, an actual chainsaw, and it took forever to do so, too. So, again, this is the wrestling podcast, so wrestling references, ahoy! And we are recording this on the coattails of October the 31st, 2016.
Goodbye, Halloween.
Yes, so we are still doing Halloween/wrestling references. So there's that. Yeti and all that. Dungeon of Doom. All the jazz.
Yeah.
The Undertaker possessing Joss Matthews.
Blood from the ceiling that looks nothing like blood.
Yes.
Jam.
Who was crucified again in ECW?
I believe I know Raven did it to Sandman. I think it was.
I think he too. Yes, it was Sandman, and oh boy, was Kurt Angle pissed about that.
Rightly so.
They did not get Kurt Angle in ECW for that reason because he was actually in talk with a contract. Curiously enough, the ECW would get Kurt Angle eventually in the 2006 WWE reboot.
Oh boy,
that
must have been great.
That featured the Zombie in the very first match of the very first episode.
Well, I guess that was dead reception then.
I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer.
Oh boy.
So speaking of the 2006 and things that should not have happened, last time we were here in this fashion here, we were discussing about, well, specifically I was engaging you all into a very one-sided monologuing about how I would have rebooked the entire Rey Mysterio's World Heavyweight title reign that took place in 2006. Last time we left Mysterio, he was retaining his world title in that triple threat match at WrestleMania by pinning Randy Orton, which I remind you in my timeline, Randy Orton has been already beaten twice by Mysterio, once at No Way Out and the second time at WrestleMania. But there is one guy that Rey Mysterio never pinned or beaten. In fact, there is a guy that Rey Mysterio has never been able to beat in his entire career. And that is Kurt Angle, the Olympic gold medalist, which was now currently in his last year in WWE and also in his most mean mode, if you will. He was really mean at the time, really aggressive, you know, he was like a pit bull, a wrestling machine and a pit bull. Breeded together, essentially. Yes, so that was Kurt Angle at the time. Good stuff.
He would snap your ankle.
Yes.
If he could.
Yes, at this point in time, he was not even trying to do his regular ankle lock in a standing position. He would just go immediately for essentially the knee bar. Just grabbing and hugging that leg as if it was a long-lost lover on the mat. Breaking people's legs, at least in kayfabe. So now we are in the first episode of SmackDown after WrestleMania, and Rey Mysterio is made to look strong and believable.
Which is all well and good.
As an underdog champion who overcomes the odds every time, and really his size has not really come to play in the constant struggle to defend the title, but it will come into play in his next big-time feud. And I'll get to that, but before that...
Yeah?
In this episode of SmackDown, in real life, Rey Mysterio defended the title against Randy Orton in a rematch from No Way Out, essentially. Yeah. And he beat him clean. One of his only clean title defenses, honestly. One of his only successful title defenses that did not end in a disqualification, or if it were to be a non-title match, into him getting essentially pinned clean by everyone. 2006 really blowed.
Yeah, I could tell and heard from tales.
Yes, it blowed so much. I even said the past tense of blow wrong. That's how much it blowed. So there's that. Now, instead of defending the title this time around, we're going to have Rey Mysterio not defend the title.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
After all that, he deserves it. Instead, we're going to have a number one contenders title match in the main event between Kurt Angle and Orton. Now, in real life, they were going to have a match in the second episode of SmackDown after WrestleMania, 1 week from now. But we're going to move that 1 week prior for storyline purposes.
Right, okay, now, that'll be interesting to know.
Kurt Angle destroys Randy Orton. If you recall, up until this point, Kurt Angle has never been able to really get his hands on Orton because he always found a way to sneak past him or getting a DQ.
Yep.
That would put him into the match at WrestleMania, the clever bastard. Or there was that one time in which Mark Henry interfered. So he's never been able to get his hit back on the Orton situation. He does here by completely obliterating him. Which is fine because Randy Orton was getting, suspended for 30 days because of the welfare violation.
Oh.
The first of two, I believe, welfare violations. Because Randy likes pot.
Yes.
So anyway, we're getting rid of Randy because as a heel, he has run his course. He failed to capture the title on multiple occasions, so is now done for the moment. Kurt Angle, on the other hand, is still red hot. In fact, you could say is red, blue, and white hot.
Yes.
You suck. You suck. You suck! Okay. So, Kurt Angle wins the match. Randy is on the shelf. Kurt Angle becomes the number one contender for the world title. Now, we're going to take a month to build up this feud. And in the episode of SmackDown preceding Backlash, which at the time was a Raw exclusive pay-per-view, so it does not concern us,
yeah.
Rey Mysterio will defend the title against Kurt Angle. This gives us ample time to build the feud and build up tension between the two and bring up in storyline that Rey Mysterio never beat Kurt Angle, so he has a mountain to climb in that regard. And that's good. That's all well and good. Okay?
Yeah, because that still keeps him as the underdog, which makes logical sense.
Yes. Because in spite of his recent wins and his really positive streak as a champion, Kurt Angle is still one of the guys he's never been able to get over.
Yeah, he's one of the top dogs
yes, absolutely.
In the fans' eyes.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, parallel to that, Mark Henry just nonchalantly reappears in the first episode of SmackDown after WrestleMania. If you recall, I still had him in this timeline being defeated by Undertaker in that casket match. But it was a very close call.
Yeah.
I want to stress that. In this case, it was a very close call. Mark Henry was still put into the very large casket made specifically for him. So he needs to look strong once again. If you recall, I have been doing all I could to keep Mark Henry consistently strong, seen like a beast throughout this period of time, and I made absolutely sure they would never actually battle Rey Mysterio, not even once, not even on tag team matches, not even on passing. Maybe a brief exchange in the Royal Rumble, but that is about it. Okay?
Yeah, I get that. And plus, I still remember that Royal Rumble finish against Mark Henry.
Yes, Mark Henry eliminated like 11 people. I made him tie up with Kane's record, which at this point in time doesn't really mean anything anymore.
Yeah.
Because Roman Reigns beat that record.
Yeesh.
Well, actually, funny enough, at the time he was cheered like a conquering hero. So, yeah, you had to thank WWE's transparent booking for really changing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine that. So, Mark Henry just reappears. He says that he fears no casket. I ain't afraid of no casket. I ain't afraid of no dead man. I ain't afraid of no ghost. Whatever. Somebody go and get their ass kicked and all that. Theme song, everything is strong. Oh, Mark Henry. Tough, strong. He got out of the casket by punching his way through it.
Oh, so he did a Kill Bill, did he?
Well, he did more like an hulking up inside a casket, really. That's what he says. I think that's kind of cool in a goofy way, but still, it makes him look strong.
Yes, that would make him look strong.
And then proceeds to have a squash match against the 3 people, and he destroys them. Recently, I've been really enjoying the Braun Strowman squash matches, in which he gets to appear and just destroy, pulverize, annihilate people around in the most convincing fashion possible. And it was really fun to watch. So I want Mark Henry to do that essentially for the next month or so.
For your own pleasure.
And also by keeping him...
looking like an unstoppable force. Yes, I get that idea.
So he looks strong while destroying people left and right. He might have a match with somebody that was not a jobber. The point is that he wins and hurts people. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Alright, so we come to the end of the month and we have the big anticipated match in between Mysterio and Angle. They have a 5-star classic, obviously. And Rey Mysterio wins clean. Simple as that.
Yay!
Rey Mysterio beats Kurt Angle 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring. He wins. He's overcome it. He's an even more believable champion than he was before.
Have to make it a very believable struggle, I would say.
Oh yes, absolutely. So, well, they shake hands in the name of sportsmanship. And then what happens? Guess what happens? You'll never guess what happens.
Somebody's gonna get their ass kicked.
Oh, you don't say. Mark Henry comes down the ring. Oh, yes. Now, this could go either way.
Yeah.
I could have Mark Henry coming down the ring and destroy both Angle and Mysterio, asserting his dominance. Or I could have Kurt Angle going away and then have Mark Henry appear, slowly approaching the ring and just, positioning himself right in front of Rey Mysterio to emphasize the difference in size and essentially communicating to him in a very polite way that he's going to be the next champion. So I think that should be a really cool poster image too.
Yes, it actually would.
I think it would work otherwise because at this point in time Mark Henry is a beast of a man, so it works either way. Now, in the build-up to their match at Judgment Day, which is going to be the main event, Mark Henry versus Rey Mysterio for the World Heavyweight Championship, which is what the feud to culminate a pay-per-view should have been, not Rey Mysterio versus JBL, which was... it was not a good feud. But anyway, so in the lead up to that match, to that pay-per-view, the week after his defense against Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio will bear witness, in the commentator's table that is, will bear witness to a last man standing match between Henry and Angle, because if you recall, they never quite resolved their previous issues.
Nope.
So they have a grueling and I am assuming brutal last man standing match, which Mark Henry wins. And he wins it by world's strongest slamming Angle through various tables. I'd say, yes. while Rey Mysterio gets to watch and looking absolutely horrified.
Yeah, because he's like manhandling Angle like a sack of potatoes.
It's going to be a brutal match, and Angle just is Angle, so of course he manages to do some really cool stuff, like a Angle slam to the guy, maybe a moonsault, Angle lock, and all that.
Yeah.
But ultimately Mark Henry goes over. And Rey Mysterio actually at this point in time looks genuinely frightened. Like, is petrified. Is doubted himself. Can I do this? I don't think I can do this.
Yeah, because he just saw what happened to Angle, so that would be all like, oh my god, that's like, oh, I can't fight that.
So, essentially, yes. So after looking so convincing and strong as a champion in spite of his size, for the first time ever, during his title reign, his size really comes into question, becomes a focal point to a seemingly impossible mountain to climb. That is Mark Henry. Mark Henry has been destroying people twice his size with ease. He's gone toe-to-toe with Taker and Angle and everything. He's eliminated so many people at the Royal Rumble. I mean, it took, 6, 7 other people and their respective finishers to daze Mark Henry, to daze him, so that they could actually hope to throw him outside. This is the equivalent of Spike Dudley going against Brock Lesnar in Scoop. You know?
Oh, yes.
So there's that. This makes for an interesting story. It's the ultimate underdog versus the ultimate monster of a man. It's justified.
It's like the wrestling version. It's like the wrestling version of David versus Goliath.
I don't want to say that because it's been said like a million bajillion times. Because WWE booking, it is so predictable at times. Most of the times. Yeah. Yes! Finally, this is happening. The first time meeting one-on-one between Mysterio and Henry. Colliding at the main event of Judgment Day. And for Rey Mysterio, it's going to be a real Judgment Day. So it's even thematically appropriate, you know?
Oh yeah, I get that.
So I'd say that the card more or less looks like this. The most important matches. I'd say that JBL, which was the United States champion at the time, defends the title against the up-and-comer Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
Which wins and becomes the new champion. That's a no-brainer.
Oh yeah, definitely a no-brainer.
Which it would happen also in real life, but it would only happen in an episode of SmackDown. Now this happens in a pay-per-view, which makes it more prestigious of a title change.
Yeah, more special.
Yes.
As it should be.
Now, as for Kurt Angle, this was his final pay-per-view, SmackDown pay-per-view, before moving on to ECW. Which shall not be discussed here.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to bother rebooking ECW under WWE because I'm of the idea that it should have never been a thing to begin with. But anyway, I'd say that Kurt Angle is feuding with Fit Finlay.
Ah, the man who likes to fight.
Yes, with the shillelagh. And eventually also the leprechaun under the ring. Which was funny when it was just a sideshow attraction. When it did not become just Vince McMahon's
illegitimate son.
I was about to say bastard son, but yes, okay. If you want to be PC. That was a dumb storyline that was ruined by really terrible circumstances.
And also ruined the Cruiserweight Championship.
Yeah, well, it has returned.
Yeah, it's returned now, thankfully.
And it's already ruined.
Oh.
Because Monday Night Raw cannot book a decent storyline to save its life. I mean, it has nice wrestling, but the stories it tells, the promo it cuts, they are so subpar. On the other hand, SmackDown has become really brilliant when it comes to promos and storyline and booking in general. Seriously, there is some old school passion in the promos nowadays that really make every storyline so great and worth watching. They made The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler seem like the biggest deal of all. That's how good SmackDown is in that regard, but alas, the Cruiserweight division is on the 3 hours flagship show!
Yeah, should have went to SmackDown.
Yeah, well, SmackDown barely finds the time to have 5 minutes of wrestling nowadays.
Oh gosh.
Which is the problem that SmackDown has. Anyway,
so back to...
back in time to the year 2006 reimagined.
Yeah.
Alright, so Kurt Angle feuding with Fit Finlay, which is a match I would have loved to see at the time, but I never got. So that's happening, because why not?
Yeah, because it has to happen. It should happen.
Alright, now, the main event. Here comes the pain. I mean, somebody gonna get their ass kicked. Somebody gonna get their ass whipped. Etc, etc. So, needless to say, Mark Henry dominates Rey Mysterio. Like, Rey Mysterio tries every tactic in the book. Tries to outrun him, out-tire him, sneaking some kicks in the legs, some aerial moves. But Mark Henry is a beast of a man and he counteracts everything. He dominates him, he slams it, he bullies him. But Rey Mysterio is nothing but resilient. So this goes on for a while. And I remember the matches that they actually had on SmackDown. They were pretty good. They were a perfect big man versus smaller man type of matchup.
Yeah. Also,
there was Mark Henry no-selling a frog splash and just rolling around. Very agile, too, and World Strong slamming him. That's what happened on SmackDown the first time they encountered each other. But anyway, so Rey Mysterio tries everything, but it doesn't seem to work. But he eventually manages, as the match goes on, Mark Henry gets tired, gets more sloppy because he's a big man. He's not very mobile.
Yeah.
And Rey Mysterio takes advantage of that. So eventually, Rey Mysterio manages to do about 3-4 consecutive 619s to the guy. It's like, hey, 619, and then the guy dizzy, and then he goes to
another rope.
For a rope, maybe a different position. Instead of his space in the rope, it's just
like he's holding onto the top rope, trying to get his bearings.
Exactly. And in that case, Rey Mysterio goes for a 619 on the rib cage, which hurts, and then he just goes on the bottom rope, and there is another 619 to the face, and so on and so forth, up until eventually the guy is just on his knees. So Rey Mysterio does his springboard Bronco Buster, or, when he lands on a guy's face.
Yeah.
With his crotch, essentially. Yeah. And that finally puts freaking Mark Henry, on the mat. So Rey Mysterio climbs for his big splash from the top turnbuckle.
Yeah.
And he connects, and he manages, just barely, to sneak in a win, a 1-2-3 win before Henry powers out of the pinfall. So miraculously, Rey Mysterio manages to beat the impossible challenge of Mark Henry. And the best part is that after a match like this, both guys still look strong. Rey Mysterio looks like a conquering hero who just single-handedly defeated all the Titans in Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Which is great. And Mark Henry still looks like a beast of a man because even though he was technically pinned, he still
dominated most of the match.
And he still powered out of a pinfall, even though it was too late.
Yeah.
So that's happened. That's a unique match, a unique situation, and Rey Mysterio comes out on top. Somehow. That's great. And that also keeps Mark Henry strong when he eventually will have to face the returning Batista from the injury, because Mark Henry was the one who injured him in kayfabe, if you remember.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So hopefully this time around in this continuity, Mark Henry does not get injured himself 1 week before his match with the returning Dave, forcing Mr. Kennedy to take his place. Hopefully that does not happen in this timeline.
Yeah, we would hope so.
Alright, so now, We are on the autumn years, so to speak, of Rey Mysterio's world title run.
Yeah.
I say that this couple of things happen.
Yeah.
First of all, Rey Mysterio does not appear in ECW One Night Stand for a match against Sabu.
Yeah.
Because Sabu is a freaking lunatic, and there was that one spot in which he DDT'd him on a placed-up table, and the match ended in a no contest because, yes, because that really made Mysterio look so weak, pathetic, and really bad. So Rey Mysterio is out of ECW One Night Stand. The true hardcore ECW fans did not even want him there to begin with.
Yeah.
Instead, what he's having is a mini feud with either JBL or Fit Finlay. Really, either would do right at this point. I'm assuming that Fit Finlay wins against Angle at Judgment Day.
Right.
Because Angle is going away. So yeah, I'd say against Fit Finlay. He's having a feud with Fit Finlay. Yep. Meanwhile, though, we had the SmackDown version of the King of the Ring tournament, which was won by Booker T. And that's when that gave birth to the awesomely goofy, but still so entertaining, Gold King Booker gimmick. And I want that. I want that to exist in this timeline too. And I still want King Booker to become champion at the Great American Bash.
Right.
In fact, I think this pretty much summarizes it. Everything else goes as it went in real life. Rey Mysterio versus King Booker at the Great American Bash for the title. Chavo Guerrero interferes out of jealousy. Let's try to leave Eddie out of this as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I would say that too. Like we did last time.
So King Booker is the new heavyweight champion of the world. And Sharmell is his queen. So there's that. And that concludes my how I would rebook the Rey Mysterio World Heavyweight title. I created strong stars to fill a otherwise lacking roster at the time on SmackDown, and gave SmackDown a lot of steam by doing so. Hopefully it will go as well in the coming months. I don't know, it's a made-up timeline, and everybody is really good in hindsight.
Yeah, that's the, well, unless you're me, then...
Well, you had to have an argument prepared, obviously, but you get my point. So that is how I would rebook, etc., 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 etc. I said that 3 times already. So what did you think about that? Would you do it differently? Would you change anything? Would you not have Mysterio win the title at all? Let me know if you will.
Yes, it'd be interesting to hear, because I personally think this is actually a decent idea all round of a booking, you know, for what it is.
Thank you. I am not an internet smark for nothing.
Everyone call themselves internet smarks.
Yeah, well, let's face it, what culture has pretty much validated every internet smark who's ever lived?
Oh gosh, that's actually true.
Well, they're doing fine with their own brand of wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, they are. They're definitely doing really nicely with their own brand there.
Alright, so I guess this concludes the rebooking portion of the MADW podcast. Oh yes. Too sweet and all that. So, would you like to talk about something else? Something of your choice?
Let me think now if there was anything that happened in the wrestling world that I've seen.
Well, yeah. Okay, so Hell in a Cell came and went. It had the first women's Hell in a Cell match. It also had the first women's match to main event a pay-per-view. It was the last match to go out.
Yeah.
And I would say it is an important achievement in the world of pro wrestling, especially for how backwards WWE is. If it wasn't for how just transparently pandering and hypocritical and so much of a marketing choice this was from the start,
Yeah.
Oh, look at this. We are pushing all the women's to the main event. Right now, in the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Oh, look, we have Mick Foley putting over the fact, hey, women's in Hell in a Cell in a main event. Rather than putting over the fact, hey, this feud is violent and gruesome enough that it needs to be inside Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see my
analytical nature.
I was going to say smarkiness coming in the foreground about this. And the match itself was decent, was mighty fine, in fact. Except it was kind of ruined by an initial spot and the finish.
Eesh.
That really leaves an aftertaste of bitterness in one's mouth. And the best match of the night was the other Hell in a Cell match, that is the second of 3 freaking Hell in a Cell matches, because the cage is so devalued it had to be a very specific annual event.
Yeah,
which I really despise. But anyway,
I despise it as well. Don't worry.
But I really like the match between Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens inside the cell. It was action-packed. It had actually some new spots that we have not seen yet in Hell in a Cell, which is good. And we had Chris Jericho interfering galore, which actually, in my personal opinion, made it more interesting for once.
Well, it's definitely unheard of to have a third person come in.
You have obviously never seen or heard of triple threat Hell in a Cell matches.
Well, I mean, in a singles match, if you know what I mean.
Actually, no, it's not even the first time. I mean, the very first Hell in a Cell match had Kane interfering, if you recall.
Yeah, I didn't see that one when I was younger.
Well, it was the very first one, so it's kind of famous, and that's nothing new, really. What was new was that really interesting table spot.
Yeah.
Basically, we had a couple of tables.
Right.
One laid in the classic way outside the ring, and another one on top of it, which was actually attached to the chain wall of the cell. Right. So they were actually using the cell to the benefit of the match for a change. That's good.
Yeah.
You know, most Hell in a Cell matches nowadays, other than taking place inside a cell and just throwing an opponent boringly towards the wall of the cell, they really don't need to be Hell in a Cell matches to begin with. So it's about as shallow a gimmick can get. But here, they made a decent use of it. So then, Seth Rollins power bombs Kevin Owens to that table construct.
Hopefully, it didn't injure him.
No, and then shades of Austin Rock. Owens just slams Seth Rollins with multiple chair shots, which I like to see.
Oh wow!
So there's that. Let's see what happens going forward. So remember the time in which Joseph Connors really stole the victory and the championship victory from Joe Hendry, and they decided to essentially do a Ring of Honor and put a break in the feud to have it resume later on in the year?
Oh yeah, I definitely do remember that. I complained about it off screen.
Well, guess what? Now the feud has resumed. And now we're going to have Joseph Connors versus Joe Hendry for the WCPW Championship.
Oh yeah.
Meanwhile, Pacitti has gone, or I should say Parmesan has gone full heel. I actually like the transition from being a babyface general manager who wants to be liked by the fans to be a heel general manager that wants to be liked. I like that consistency.
Yes, I really like the consistency as well. It's like,
and also speaking of consistency, I like how the whole Martin Kirby situation has basically swapped even the alignments of the commentators, if briefly, because consistency is put over D&D alignments, for lack of a better term, because the face commentator really dislikes Kirby, finds him annoying, so he tries to really bring him down. But the heel commentator, who was a fan of Kirby when he was a heel, and he still is, instead is actually putting him on a pedestal. Which is such a weird situation because Alex Shane is supposed to be the heel, incompetent, goofy commentator, but when it comes to Martin Kirby, he's suddenly the voice of the people. It's so weird, but I love it because of that. It's definitely a different dynamic, even in the commentator's table, when it comes to this really, really unique entity in pro wrestling that is Martin Kirby. This really unique entity.
Yeah, you just gotta love how they keep to the same personalities they have, but yet the fans just kind of say the opposite. Like, Kirby's a good guy, but it's like, no, he's not a good guy. He's a bad guy. You're supposed to hate him. No, we love him.
Well, he technically did a few dastardly things that really put Parmesan over the edge and had him snap. But now, with Parmesan newfound attitude, really douchey self-centered attitude, now that justifies Martin Kirby's annoying behavior to him.
Yeah. Oh boy. It's like a breath of fresh air.
It's a new take on the classic wrestler versus authority figure angle that we've seen since Austin and McMahon, and it's been given a new direction with the whole Daniel Bryan underdog story, and it's somewhat in between the two of them, and it's also somewhat of a parody of this kind of angle, and it works because of that. It was brilliant at first because the guy that the people love was actually bullying his way into the title shot to a very, very patient general manager, all things considered.
Yeah.
And the general manager did not like him because he was an annoying twat, essentially. Look at him! How could you cheer for this guy? He drives me insane! But then he crossed the line by cheating him out of the victory, and then he tries to act like he's the good guy, and that is what justifies Martin Kirby's babyface turn much better.
Yeah, it certainly does.
Which is a babyface turn that really, much like Austin back in the day, didn't really occur night and day. It was a gradual change that was really more about how the fans reacted to him.
And then there's the worst kinds, the ones that you try to turn in from a babyface to a heel or vice versa, but the wrestler in question is not supposed to. It does not match what you would think. Like, say, Jeff Hardy, he was supposed to be turned heel at one point, but they couldn't, for the love of goodness sake, figure out a good way to turn him heel, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it's one of those dumb ideas, like trying to turn Steve Austin into a heel in 2001. And to do that, they had to making him into a complete wuss.
Yeah, saying "Kumbaya, my lord."
Yes, also that. Oh, and he hits Lita with a chair.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And hugs the boss.
And cries.
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, that was a bad idea. And, like when they tried to turn Sting heel in WCW. Or when they tried to turn Goldberg heel in WCW. You know, okay, change of alignments, they have to be earned. They cannot just happen willy-nilly.
And they need to make sense to the wrestler's character in the process.
Yes. Martin Kirby's character is probably the best booked one in the promotion so far.
Oh, yeah, he definitely is.
I mean, he went from being a guy who gets comically defeated by Eddie Guerrero and was forced to wear a dress to the guy who defeats Will Ospreay and starts a winning streak. And just like that, the most over guy in the company, just like that, he is the only one who can pull that off. I don't think even Chris Jericho will be able to pull that off. And Chris Jericho is fantastic right now. It's really, really good. He puts over a piece of paper. That's how good he is.
A piece of paper is more important than a world title.
Oh yes, the list of Jericho is super, super over.
Oh, he's had that since WCW, those list
Yeah,
things.
he reprised it to great, fantastic effect. Anyway, so Martin Kirby joins this very elite of people that really can get over in the span of a second, in the snap of a finger, just because of how charismatic and overall good, affable, and malleable they can be, if it is required of them. He is just such a naturally talented and funny individual that can be both a complete goofball and a serious threat and a true competitor in the ring. He has his cake and eats it too. That is such a hard thing to pull off in pro wrestling, and you had to be exceptionally charismatic and super over with the fans to do so. Martin Kirby achieves all that. So even if he is completely in the wrong in the way he acts, like, cuffing himself on
the ropes, yes,
and ruining the following match with his silly commentary and hitting on a random woman,
it's still great because he's just so likable, and
he's one of the only annoying characters who are actually likable.
And it's actually funny as well in the process.
Yes, my gosh, he is so good. Do you see why we are obsessed with Martin Kirby yet? We are obsessed with him because he's such a talented and funny wrestler and puts out amazing performances. You should see his match with Joseph Connors at Refuse to Lose. It's grand. And even though we've seen a million times an authority figure turning on a wrestler and costing the victory on their matches,
yeah,
when Pacitti did it, it worked so well because of the audience interaction with it.
Yeah, especially the audience throwing the glow sticks at him.
Yes, they were so pissed off. Like, it felt like the kind of genuine marquee getting pissed off. Like, it's the kind of genuine reaction to a heel, dastardly heel doing something dastardly to a beloved babyface that mainstream wrestling lacks nowadays.
Yeah.
Because the heels are cheered and the babyface are booed in the WWE. Because they cannot have interesting babyface characters to save their lives. Well, actually, technically they do, but then they go from NXT to the main roster and they are ruined.
Oh gosh. That's really bad over there.
So it's nice to have such an amazingly over babyface like Martin Kirby, which really gets over because of his personality, not because he's a good or a bad guy. And ultimately, that's all that it actually should matter.
Yeah, that everyone is behind the character himself at that point.
I like most of the workers in WCPW right now. I love the Primate.
Oh yeah, I really like.
Okay, so even though they made the mistake of having him just lose all the way through against Joe Coffey, which is a guy that I don't get the appeal, honestly.
Yeah, Joe Coffey is kind of low in my list of wrestlers I like.
He is the Iron Man, Joe Coffey, but trust me, there is nothing iron or coffee about this guy. Okay, so he comes down the ring wearing an Iron Man mask.
Yeah.
His theme song is a cover of a Ozzy Osbourne song.
Yeah.
And his personality is generic good guy babyface. There isn't really anything that's his. Martin Kirby, you cannot confuse him with anyone else.
Same with Joe Hendry.
Joe Hendry sings his own theme songs and also lacks emotions when he wrestles.
Yeah.
That's a problem that I pointed out about him, and that's why he's ranked significantly lower as of late.
Yeah. Which is a shame.
The Primate is an animal that destroys people, or at least he should be booked like a guy that destroys people. As of late, it's been booked like that by killing all those jobbers and the wrestling trainees.
Yeah.
It was really fun to watch him destroy people, and they should keep it at that.
Yeah.
But Joe Coffey is just, hey, I have an Iron Man mask. I have a Ozzy Osbourne song as a theme song. There is nothing original or creative about me.
Yeah, like I said, he's low on my list. No,
He's a good worker, don't get me wrong, he's a good worker.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
But I'm not particularly affectionate to him.
You know what the worst is to me is basically Prospect and Prince Amin.
Well, you know, Prospect I like as a comedy faction. Okay, that completely ridiculous, unnecessarily overbooked match against the Lost Perspectiva, basically themselves, which went on for 10 whole minutes. I have to admit, I laughed a little bit.
I laughed a little bit, but because I thought it was the most ridiculous thing.
It was. They went all out with the ridiculousness, but honestly, that's what made it special. It was stupid, but it was entertaining, and I was just openly chuckling at some point.
I think the thing I laughed at most was when the one guy basically goes like, "I'm going back in the back and kick his ass," and and then suddenly you see him crawling out of the curtain, going like, and then pretending to be pulled back in, like.
Okay, but then the best part is that when the same guy actually mix up his performances, like he comes down the ring with the luchador's mask, but he's selling an injury that is non-mask alter ego head at the stomach. Or rather, because he had a diarrhea attack in kayfabe.
Yeah.
That is the moment that I really started to chuckle. It was stupid and it went on for far too long, though. But it was still goofy enough to be funny. And then, in the same show, we had the stiffest, most brutal chopping battle in between one half of Mustache Mountain and Johnny Moss.
Yeah, good old boss.
Which is probably the most Japanese match I've seen in the British scene in quite some time. Johnny Moss was chopped so hard he bled. That is hardcore.
Oh yeah, you gotta love that. They would kept going chopping each other for ages.
That was the manliest match since that one I saw at Wrestle Kingdom 10.
Yeah.
So I like this. I like this balance. WCPW can pretty much be the kind of wrestling show that wants his cake and eats it too. You can have the goofy stuff with Lost Perspectiva, Prospect, you know, the pantomime of El Ligero, which I always appreciate.
Yeah. And
Martin Kirby. But you can also have the serious, hard-hitting stuff like everything Joseph Connors does. Or everything Johnny Moss does. And even Martin Kirby himself. When he wants to.
You just have to love wrestling sometimes. They have this own little world that can only work there.
What I emphatically don't like is the new setting for the latest shows. It manages to have an even worse audio than the previous setting.
Oh yeah. That's always been a bad thing for me as well. Especially when they're talking on the microphones, it's hard to hear what they're saying sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even with headphones.
I actually watch it with the speakers that I have here.
Well, it's hard to hear and to understand even with headphones.
Oh gosh.
That's what I'm saying. The audio is not very good. The audio at the commentary table is good, but not the microphone audio in the arena. No, that's a problem.
Yeah, hopefully that will get fixed in later episodes.
I really love the Newcastle crowd for the most part.
Yeah.
They come out with creative chance to tell the wrestlers that they love that they absolutely love them. Also, they are a pretty old school crowd in the sense that they cheer all the baby faces and categorically boo all the bad guys. I mean, Joseph Connors, let's face it, he's a psychotic, cold-blooded killer of a man, and he beats up people, and he holds his belt like he cradles it like a baby. I see him being the kind of heel character that in WWE would be cheered on, because he's so interesting and unhinged and crazy and unpredictable and out of his melon, but in WCPW, in good old-fashioned Newcastle, he gets booed because he is the bad guy. And he deserves to be booed. And he goes up against the people that the fans legitimately love. So, yeah, honestly, the Newcastle crowd makes wrestling so easy on the creator's part.
Yeah. Oh, gotta love the crowd sometimes in certain places.
Although,
yeah,
sometimes the crowd gets too self-righteous or self-obsessed and put themselves over with just singing stuff like, oh, you're watching Vince McMahon, which is so self-entitled and also very, very, very dumb. Of course Vince is not watching.
That's pretty much...
That's annoying.
That's pretty much the British crowd being lads, essentially.
I don't care for it whenever I hear it.
To be honest, I don't care for it either, but, sadly, that's the crowd's chance for you. You can't control that.
Yeah, well...
Especially in sports entertainment.
No, don't say sports entertainment, please. It's wrestling. It's pro wrestling.
Alright, but wrestling is a sport.
Yes, and it's also entertaining. But if you call it sports entertaining, you're playing Vince's game. And it's also devaluing the profession as a whole, if you ask me.
Alright, but I really don't devalue it. Besides, I put high value on anything, regardless of what.
Okay, so here's the thing. We know it's sport. We know it's entertaining. We know it's entertainment and sport put together.
Yes.
But when the people involved in it, when the commentators and the wrestlers who cut promos just acknowledge that it's sports entertainment, it's like they are breaking the fourth wall and devaluing the product. It's like they don't take it seriously because they call it sports entertainment. They don't call it a sport. They don't call it wrestling. And that's annoying to me. I mean, I'm supposed to be immersed in this, but I can't if you keep acknowledging that it's all fake.
But don't isn't it like football as well? There's people get injured in those, and that's called sports entertainment as well, isn't it?
It is?
I think so.
I don't think so.
Well, then again, I'm not into football or any other sport, so, and wrestling is kind of the only sport I ever got into, so...
It's a fake sport, too.
Would boxing count as sports entertainment?
Well, I guess it's entertaining when you watch your favorite sport. In that sense, every sport is sports entertainment. But you don't hear the people involved in it acknowledging it as entertainment, because that would feel like saying that watching a football game or the other football game or a boxing game, it's the same as watching an episode of Scrubs, for example. No, they want you to take it seriously because they want to be taken seriously. This is a sport, a noble sport, damn it, a manly sport. This is not simple entertainment. This is somebody dedicating his life to the sport.
Yeah.
You know? And I would love to have that in WWE. Instead of saying sports entertainment, call it pro wrestling. You know, like they do in indie promotions, like they do in Ring of Honor. This is pro wrestling.
Okay, I get where you're coming from here. It's like if an actor on stage...
This is the smarkiest complaint ever, and it's shared by every self-professed smark who's ever lived. But still, it's a legitimate complaint, if you ask me. I mean, I cannot give myself into suspension of disbelief if the people involved in it don't believe.
This is kind of the problem with me, really, because every time I hear that word, it's like white noise. It's a pointless word to me that just... Like, okay, you're defining what you're working for, so that doesn't tell me anything, so that's just something useless, so I've just ignored that. It's...
Okay, personally, the only time sports entertainment is justified to be mentioned is when The Rock says it, because I'm the most electrifying man in sports entertainment! It just sounds right when The Rock says it.
Because he sells it like as if it's the best damn cookies.
He's cooking his promos like he smells them. I don't know what I was going for, but anyway. So when The Rock says it, it's alright. Also because the most electrifying man in wrestling wouldn't sound as good as the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. you know?
Yes, I get that.
So that is the only exception. Otherwise, I really don't care about the moniker of sports entertainment, and I'm annoyed whenever the wrestlers themselves say it. They, who have busted their backsides for this profession and this field, dedicated their life training to be pro wrestlers, but no, now they are superstars. They are sports entertainer. They are a circus act, essentially. So yes, that's a fundamental nitpick. A fundamental nitpick I have with WWE. And they've been like this for decades now. Essentially, ever since Vince McMahon says, you know what, I don't want to pay a supplemental tax for this. I'm going to say this is not a real sport. That way, I don't have to pay a sports-related tax. Yeah.
Talk about finding a loophole just to keep money.
So that is why it's sports entertainment from now until the end of time.
So then he could save money.
Essentially.
Oh boy.
Right. So I really would love for us to one day just sit down and do a live reaction to an episode of WCPW Loaded.
Yeah.
This new two-part event titled True Legacy is coming up. I would love for us to react to that. So if we can manage to do so, that would be awesome.
It would be great if we could do that. Yes, I would love to do that. Let's see. We have to figure out a way to do it though. But it'd be nice because isn't that the? Tell me if I'm wrong, but isn't Mustache Mountain going to be fighting Moss and Slater on that pay-per-view?
Oh, yes.
I mean, not pay-per-view. That special event.
Oh yes, I can never get enough of Moss and the other guy from
Slater.
The other guy from Mustache Mountain.
Oh yeah,
just trying to outman each other because it is so good every time they do that.
Every time I see Mustache Mountain, I just love how they go like, "Oh, hello there, hello."
Yeah, they actually take the time to shake the hands of everyone in the front row of the audience, which is so nice, so gentlemanly.
I just love that about them. It's like,
yeah,
especially how old-fashioned they look from like different eras of wrestling in attire.
They are essentially like the vaudevillains, except booked decently,
I get you.
The vaudevillains could have been such a cool tag team, but no, they are too goofy apparently, says Vince McMahon, the guy who approved of the gobbledygooker. Just saying.
Mick Foley actually got to see that costume and actually got to wear the head of it recently.
Well, isn't that great? Mick Foley. The less I see him, the better. Honestly, right now, I don't particularly stand him very much.
Why? What has he done lately?
Well, other than all of the pandering because of the women's match inside the Hell in a Cell. And then he cuts these impassionate promos which feel so forced and last minute.
Yeah, true.
No. It doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I see with that. His optimism can be a little misguided in places.
No. I mean, if it was old Mick Foley, like Commissioner Foley days, that would be great. But this Foley has no personality.
I can't say anything about present Foley, sadly, other than what I've seen on Twitter.
He's more beard than man as of late.
And he has a nice suit apparently, from what people say about his that checkered.
It's bad. It's really bad. It's so stupid. But anyway, so I guess that should do it for a all new episode of MADW. Thank you for joining us, everybody. This has been Madhog Die Ringmaster.
And I've been the outsider of Archeron.
No, you are Big Van Devar.
Okay.
Remember, you're Big Van Devar.
Okay.
Because Devar is an anagram of Vader.
Yeah, which I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. So, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And maybe also watching, because this is technically a YouTube video, even though it's a podcast, and there's only one image you can see. But anyway, that's not important. That's just pointless, like me complaining about the sports entertainment moniker.
And me pissing him off for like 10 minutes.
So, I guess I'll see you next time, and remember to check under your bed for worm-eating boogeyman coming to get ya!
And remember to check outside your window for sevens.
Oh boy, yes. I was speaking about that. Oh no, that was bad. So bad.
The more scarier thought would be if anyone was expecting both me and you to wrestle.
The most scary thing would be if me and you were cosplaying as the Boogeyman and Seven, and we're actually outside the window of a 7-year-old kid, terrorizing him. Trick or treat, Kenny!
and then they become tag team champions.
Yeah, they joined the Dungeon of Doom, I guess. But actually, one last thing before we go.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg 2. Your thoughts?
I hope it'll be a redemption for both of these men for the first time it happened.
Well, look, the reason the first match was this bad was because both the men just didn't give a damn, and they were booed even before the match began because the audience was really, really disappointed in the two of them.
Yeah.
So really, the only way this rematch, if you will, can be as bad or even worse than the first WrestleMania encounter is if they really did not give an absolute damn this time too. And by the looks of it, Goldberg does care, at the very least.
Yeah, which is good to see, at least.
And Brock Lesnar shows up when it's payday. And it's happy about that. So it will automatically be better. Will it be actually good? That's hard to say, but it's going to be an event just because of the scope of it.
Yeah.
So there's that. I'm cautiously looking forward to that. But honestly, I'm far more interested in the rumors about Shawn Michaels versus AJ Styles at Royal Rumble, which takes place in San Antonio, Texas.
That would be interesting to see.
Now, that's something I definitely would want to pay to see. Yes. Also, I really hope Finn Balor just doesn't show up and wins the Royal Rumble, because it would be such a predictable route.
Yeah.
And especially since we have so many legitimate contenders this year, thanks to the brand split already, I wouldn't know who could win, really. And which is good!
Because you want that. You want that unpredictability.
Yes, this is good. Unless Finn Balor shows up, I genuinely don't know who could win that Rumble match. So that's something to look forward to for once.
Yeah, definitely would be interested to see, that's for sure.
Okay, so anyway, we are a bit over time.
Yeah, so let's be off then.
See you next time, folks. Happy wrestling.
Take care of yourselves. Don't get injured on our accounts.
I'm coming for you, Timmy.
Trick or treat.